Grandpa, do we have to go with the Hendersons this year? Oliver's voice was quiet and hopeful as he looked up from the puzzle pieces spread across our living room floor. He was 7 years old, smart and thoughtful, the kind of kid who noticed everything but didn't say much. I put down my coffee cup and looked at his face carefully. "Why are you asking that, buddy?" His small fingers touched the edge of a puzzle piece. "Grandmother Claire says I'm not really part of the family tree. She showed me the one in her office. My name wasn't on it." My jaw got tight. Claire Henderson, my wife for 15 years, had been saying things like this since we finished adopting Oliver 3 years ago. Nothing was ever good enough. His grades were okay, but not amazing. His manners were fine, but not Henderson level. His background was unfortunate. That was her favorite word, unfortunate. "You're very much part of this family," I said strongly. "That tree just needs to be updated." That was a lie. I knew Claire would never update it. But I wasn't ready to have that conversation with a 7-year-old on a Saturday morning in October. I'm 67 now, retired for 7 years, but back then I was 62 and still working part-time as a forensic accountant. 35 years with the Vancouver Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit had taught me one important skill: patience. Watch, write things down, wait for the pattern to show up. I'd taken down organized crime gangs and dishonest companies with that approach. I just never thought I'd need to use it on my own wife's family. Claire came into the room, looking elegant as always, in a soft sweater, her silver hair perfectly styled. "Thomas, we need to leave by noon. Mother wants everyone there by 1 for the photos." She looked at Oliver. "And Oliver, wear the navy sweater I put out for you, not one of those graphic t-shirts." "Yes, grandmother," Oliver said quietly, and something about his automatic obedience made my stomach hurt. The Henderson estate sat on 10 acres of expensive property in West Vancouver, overlooking the water. The main house was a huge timber frame building built by Claire's grandfather in the 1950s when the family's logging business was doing great. Now they had branched into real estate development, though the business wasn't doing as well. I'd seen the financial records. Claire had left her laptop open once, and old habits don't disappear easily. We arrived to find the circular driveway already filled with expensive cars. Claire's brother David's Range Rover, her sister Patricia's Tesla, their mother's old Jaguar. The Hendersons didn't do simple. Eleanor Henderson stood on the front steps greeting people like a queen receiving her subjects. She was 83, tall and commanding in a designer outfit, her white hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Thomas," she said coldly when we came up. "Claire and the boy." The boy. Never Oliver, never our grandson. "Hello, Eleanor," I said calmly. She bent slightly toward Oliver, not quite far enough to be kind. "My, you've grown. Still so quiet, aren't you? Henderson children are usually much more talkative." Oliver pressed against my side. I put my hand on his shoulder. Inside, 65 relatives and friends had gathered. Long tables covered with white tablecloths, catered turkey, and all the traditional Canadian Thanksgiving food. Workers walking around with drinks. The Hendersons didn't do casual family dinners. David cornered me by the bar. He was 60, soft around the middle, running the family business into the ground through a mix of bad decisions and bad timing. "Thomas, still doing that consulting work?" "Some," I said. I'd gone freelance after retiring from the VPD, helping law firms track hidden money in divorce cases and companies find theft. It paid well and kept my mind sharp. "Must be nice having all that free time. I'm drowning in work. Just closed a deal on a new property development in Burnaby. $17 million. I'd read about that deal. It was paid for with money the Hendersons didn't have, borrowed against properties that were already losing money. But I smiled and nodded. Document. Wait. My oldest friend, James Chen, a criminal defense attorney, had warned me 6 months earlier over drinks at our usual place in Gastown. "Tom, you need to protect yourself. I've seen situations like this destroy families. Document everything. If this marriage goes wrong, you'll need proof." "It's not going wrong," I'd insisted. "It's just her family." James had given me a look that said he'd heard that before. Her family is her, my friend. She chose them over you the day she chose not to stand up for Oliver. You just haven't accepted it yet." I ignored him then. Now, watching Claire laugh with her sisters while Oliver sat alone on the couch near the fireplace, I wondered if James had been right all along. The incident happened after dinner, during dessert and coffee. Eleanor stood up and tapped her wine glass with a fork. The conversation stopped. "Everyone, I have a special announcement. As you know, the Henderson family has been part of British Columbia for 4 generations. This year, I've hired a professional photographer to capture our legacy. We'll be taking a formal family portrait, Henderson blood only, to hang in the main hall." My stomach dropped. She continued, her voice carrying across the room. "So I'll need all Henderson descendants to gather on the back terrace in 15 minutes. Children included, of course. Blood children." I was across the room, but I saw Oliver's face freeze. He understood. Everyone understood. Patricia's daughter, Emma, 9 years old, walked past Oliver on her way to the terrace. "You don't get to be in it," she said matter-of-factly. "Grandmother said only real Hendersons." Oliver sat there, his hands folded in his lap, staring at nothing. I started moving toward him, but Claire got there first. Not to comfort him, not to tell her mother this was mean, but to... Crouched down with her phone out, she took a photo of his face. The click of the camera shutter cut through the noise of 65 people moving toward the terrace. Oliver's eyes, wide and hurt and confused, stared at her. "Oh, sweetie, don't look so sad," Claire said, her voice loud enough for nearby relatives to hear. "It's just a photo. You can help Grandpa with the coats or something." She stood up, showed the photo to Patricia. Both of them smiled. "Look at that face," Patricia said. "He takes everything so seriously." "Overly sensitive," Claire agreed. "Must be the trauma from before." Before we adopted him, before we became his parents, before he had a chance at a normal life. Something inside me changed. Not the explosive, dramatic kind of change, the quiet kind, the deep kind, the kind that means you'll never be the same person you were 60 seconds ago. I walked across that expensive hardwood floor to where my adopted son sat, and I knelt in front of him. I looked into his dark eyes, not the Henderson blue, and I saw what this moment would do to him if I let it stand. "Oliver," I said quietly, just for him. "It's time." He blinked, not understanding. I stood up and pulled out my phone. My hands didn't shake as I scrolled to a contact I'd hoped I'd never have to use. Sarah Martinez, my former colleague from the VPD, now with the RCMP's Financial Crimes Division. The guests were filing onto the terrace. Eleanor was directing the photographer. David was adjusting his tie. Claire was touching up her lipstick. Sarah answered on the first ring. "Tom, it's been 2 years. I need you to open an investigation," I said, my voice calm and cold. "Henderson Real Estate Holdings, tax evasion, money laundering through offshore accounts, fake property valuations. I'm sending you everything I have in the next hour. Start with the Burnaby development, then I'll give you the rest." Silence, then, "Jesus, Tom, your wife's family." I've never been more sure of anything. "Okay, send it all. We'll move fast." The call lasted 75 seconds. When I lowered the phone, Eleanor was staring at me from the terrace doorway. David had stopped mid-step. Claire was walking toward me, confusion turning into anger. "Thomas, what are you doing? Who are you calling?" I picked up Oliver, his small body shaking against my chest. I met my wife's eyes. "Getting our son away from people who treat him like he's throwaway," I said. "You can come with us, or you can stay for your precious photo. Your choice." She looked at Oliver, then at her mother, then back at me. She stayed. I carried Oliver through that crowd of 65 relatives, and not one person tried to stop me. They were still moving into position for the photo, arranging themselves by height and importance, completely unaware that the call I just made would unravel every carefully hidden crime the Henderson family had committed over 2 decades. The fallout would last 5 years. But that night, as I sat in Oliver's room holding him while he finally cried, I only cared about one thing. I had chosen my son, and I would make them all understand what it meant to call a child throwaway. The documentation I'd been quietly collecting for 18 months filled 2 encrypted external drives and 6 cloud storage folders. Every suspicious conversation I'd overheard at family dinners, every financial document Claire had carelessly left open on our shared computer, every text message where Eleanor had made cruel comments about Oliver that Claire had screenshotted and sent to her siblings. Every social media post where the Henderson grandchildren were celebrated and Oliver's achievements were ignored. I worked through the night while Oliver slept restlessly, organizing files into a complete story that Sarah's team could follow. Property records showing fake valuations, bank transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, tax returns that didn't match actual income, development permits obtained through bribes. By 4 a.m., I'd uploaded everything to a secure server and sent Sarah the access codes. My phone buzzed at 7 a.m. Sarah calling. "Tom, this is bigger than you said. The tax evasion alone could bring criminal charges. The money laundering goes back 15 years. Make sure the CRA sees everything," I said, the Canada Revenue Agency. "Your wife is going to know this came from you." "I know. This is scorched earth, Sarah. I understand that. Once we move on this, there's no going back." I looked at Oliver's closed bedroom door. Completely. Claire came home at 9, smelling like her mother's perfume and expensive wine. She found me in the kitchen already showered and dressed. "We need to talk," she said, her voice sharp. "Yes, we do." She sat across from me at our kitchen table. "You embarrassed me yesterday walking out like that, making a scene in front of everyone." "Your mother left our son out of a family photo because he's adopted," I said evenly. "You took a picture of his face and made fun of him with your sister. And you want to talk about embarrassment?" "It was just a photo, Thomas. You're making this completely bigger than it is, like you always do." "Where did you sleep last night?" She blinked. "I stayed at Mother's. I needed space." "You left Oliver the night after he was publicly embarrassed by your family." "He's fine. Children bounce back." I leaned forward. "He cried for 4 hours. Do you even care?" "Of course I care. He's my son, too." "Then act like it." She stood quickly. "I'm done with this. I'm done with you always attacking my family. Maybe Mother had a point. Maybe this adoption was a mistake. Maybe you're right," I said quietly. Her eyes got wide. She'd expected me to fight, to apologize, to back down like I had dozens of times before. "I filed for divorce," I continued. "James is handling it. You'll be served papers by this afternoon. I'm asking for full custody of Oliver based on written evidence of emotional neglect and abuse from you. And your family." The color drained from her face. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious. My father has the best lawyers in Vancouver." "Your father is about to be investigated by the RCMP for financial crimes spanning 15 years. Your mother will be named as an accessory, and you, Claire, are about to be exposed as complicit in the emotional abuse of our child. I have 18 months of documentation." She was shaking. "Where? How?" "I'm a forensic accountant, Claire. It's what I did for 35 years. Or did you forget when you were leaving your computer unlocked?" "This is insane. You've lost your mind. Get out of my house." "It's our house. Check the deed. I purchased this property 8 years ago before we adopted Oliver. It's in my name only. The prenup your father insisted on works both ways." I'd spent the last year quietly separating our finances, moving assets, preparing for this exact moment. James had helped me set up trusts and protections that even Eleanor's expensive lawyers wouldn't see coming. Claire grabbed her purse and headed for the door. She turned back. "You're going to regret this. My family will destroy you." "No," I said. "I'm going to destroy them. Tell your mother the first news story runs tonight at 6. Sarah's story aired on CBC Vancouver that evening, a 10-minute investigative piece. Vancouver real estate dynasty built on fraud. The footage was damning. Interviews with contractors who'd been pressured to make estimates higher, tenants who'd paid rent for buildings with fake safety certificates, former Henderson employees who detailed systematic money laundering. David Henderson's face filled the screen as a reporter confronted him outside his office. No comment? No comment. The story went viral within hours. By midnight, the CRA had announced an investigation. By morning, the BC Securities Commission had frozen Henderson Real Estate Holdings assets. I watched it all from my living room, Oliver asleep upstairs, unaware that his grandfather had just set off a bomb under his entire maternal family. James came by around 10 with a bottle of whiskey. "You really did it. The legal community is buzzing. Eleanor's lawyers are scrambling. Good. Claire filed a countersuit this afternoon claiming you're an unfit parent, that you've been neglecting Oliver, that you're mentally unstable." What's her evidence? None. It's desperation. But Tom, you need to be prepared. She's going to play the victim, devoted mother abandoned by unstable husband. Some people will buy it. Let them. I have the truth. The second wave hit 3 days later. A detailed report on the Henderson family's charitable foundation, supposedly supporting Indigenous youth education. In reality, it was a tax shelter funneling money to family members disguised as work salaries. Sarah's team had traced every transaction. The foundation paid Eleanor $200,000 a year as director. Patricia collected $150,000 for program coordination that involved attending galas. 4 meetings per year. David's wife received $100,000 as community liaison. The Indigenous communities that were supposed to benefit, they'd received less than 15% of donated funds. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Indigenous leaders held press conferences condemning the Hendersons. The charitable status was taken away. Eleanor's name was removed from the Vancouver Art Gallery donor wall. But I wasn't done. The third wave exposed David's involvement in a kickback scheme with city officials. His $17 million development had been approved after suspicious campaign donations to 3 city councilors. The permits should never have been issued. He resigned from the company within 48 hours. Patricia, who'd always been so smug about the family name, was revealed to have used foundation funds for personal expenses, designer clothes, luxury vacations, a kitchen renovation, all claimed as business expenses. Her husband filed for divorce within the week. The custody battle began for real 3 weeks after I filed. Claire showed up to the first hearing in a conservative dress, her hair pulled back, playing the concerned mother. Her lawyers painted me as vindictive, unstable, using our son as a weapon. Then James presented our evidence. Text messages where Claire had called Oliver difficult and not what I expected. Photos she'd shared in the family group chat making fun of his social anxiety. A voice recording I'd made of her telling Eleanor that she'd only agreed to the adoption to make me happy, that she sometimes regretted it. The judge's expression hardened with each piece of evidence. But the final blow was the recording from Thanksgiving. I'd been wearing a small audio recorder, an old habit from my investigative days. The judge listened to the entire incident. Eleanor's announcement, Patricia's daughter telling Oliver he wasn't a real Henderson, Claire's voice, "Don't look so sad, sweetie," and then Oliver's quiet sob that only I had been close enough to hear. The courtroom was silent when the recording ended. "Mrs. Whitmore," the judge said, her voice like ice. "Do you have anything to say?" Claire's lawyers whispered urgently. She looked at me with something between hatred and disbelief. "It was taken out of context," she managed. "Context," the judge repeated. "I see. I'm granting Mr. Whitmore temporary full custody pending psychological evaluations of both parents. Mrs. Whitmore, you'll be allowed supervised visitation only." Claire's scream of protest followed me out of the courtroom. The dominoes continued to fall throughout the winter. David was charged with bribery and corruption. Eleanor faced fraud charges for the foundation scheme. Patricia was sued by the foundation's board for embezzlement. But the real punishment was social. Vancouver's elite community that had once celebrated the Hendersons now ignored them. Country club memberships were canceled. Charity boards removed their names. Friends stopped returning calls. The Henderson real estate holdings collapsed under the weight of investigations and frozen assets. The Burnaby development was seized. Properties were sold to pay fines and legal fees. Oliver started to heal. We found a child psychologist, Dr. Jennifer Park, who specialized in adoption trauma and family estrangement. "He's resilient," she told me after 3 months of sessions, "but he'll carry this. Make sure he knows you chose him. That's what matters." That's all I ever wanted him to know. Claire's supervised visits were tense, awkward. She'd bring expensive gifts, trying to buy what she'd lost, but Oliver barely looked at her. "Why didn't you help me?" he asked her during one visit, his voice small and devastating. "When grandmother said I wasn't family, why didn't you say something?" Claire had no answer. The psychological evaluations came back in March. Dr. Robert Chang, the court-appointed psychologist, spent 4 weeks interviewing us, watching our interactions with Oliver, reviewing everything. His report was damning for Claire. Mrs. Whitmore displays a pattern of prioritizing familial loyalty over her child's emotional well-being. She demonstrates limited insight into the damage caused by her actions and those of her extended family. Her parenting decisions appear heavily influenced by her mother, showing a lack of independent judgment necessary for healthy child-rearing. For me, Mr. Whitmore demonstrates strong protective instincts and appropriate parental boundaries. He has prioritized his son's safety and well-being, even at significant personal cost. He shows clear understanding of the trauma his son experienced and has taken active steps to help healing. The final custody hearing was in April. The Henderson family showed up, Eleanor out on bail, David facing trial, Patricia socially destroyed. They thought their lawyers could still turn the tide. They were wrong. Judge Catherine Morrison read through everything. Then she looked at Claire with something close to pity. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm granting Mr. Whitmore full legal and physical custody of Oliver Whitmore. You will be allowed supervised visitation for 6 months, then unsupervised pending successful completion of parenting classes and family therapy." She paused. "Additionally, I'm issuing a restraining order preventing Eleanor Henderson from any contact with the minor child." Eleanor jumped to her feet. "You can't do that. He's my grandson." "Mrs. Henderson, I can and I have. Your actions were emotional abuse. You will have no contact with this child until you complete court-mandated therapy and receive written approval. If you violate this order, you'll face contempt charges." Eleanor's face twisted with rage, but David pulled her back into receipt. The divorce was finalized in June. Claire got a small settlement. I kept the house, the savings, the life I'd built. David took a plea deal, 4 years in federal prison. Eleanor was sentenced to 2 years house arrest and 5 years probation. Patricia moved to Toronto, trying to escape the name. Claire moved back into what was left of the Henderson estate, a 38-year-old woman living with her disgraced mother. But my revenge went deeper than legal and financial destruction. I'd exposed them to something their money couldn't protect them from: the truth. Sarah's reporting won a Canadian Screen Award. The story became a case study in journalism schools. The Henderson name became synonymous with fraud and cruelty. But I had one final card to play. The anonymous blog appeared online in September, 2 years after the incident. Someone had created a detailed archive of the Henderson family's crimes: court documents, interview transcripts, financial records. But the homepage featured only one thing: the photo Claire had taken at Thanksgiving. Oliver's face, hurt and confused, standing alone while 65 relatives prepared for their blood family portrait. Below it, a single caption: "This is what the Henderson family called just a photo." The blog went viral, shared thousands of times. Local news covered it. The photo became a symbol of adoption trauma, of family cruelty, of the moment someone finally said enough. Claire called me hysterical. "How could you? That's our son! You said you wanted to protect him and you put his face all over the internet." "I didn't create the blog," I said calmly, though I'd given all the materials to Sarah, who'd given them to a digital journalism colleague who'd given them to an anonymous source. "But I'm not sorry it exists. The world deserves to know what you and your family are." "You're a monster!" "No, Claire, I'm a father. There's a difference." Oliver is 12 now. He plays hockey, gets excellent grades, and has 3 close friends who come over most weekends. He still sees his mother, though their relationship remains difficult. "Will she ever understand?" he asked me last month. "Maybe," I said, "but you don't need her to understand to be happy." "I know. I have you." Dr. Park says he's remarkably well-adjusted given what he experienced. Having one parent who chose him without question gave him a foundation to build on. I'm 67 now, fully retired. I spend my days with Oliver, coaching his hockey team, helping with homework, building the kind of childhood memories that matter. The Henderson estate was sold last year to pay off the remaining legal judgments. Eleanor lives in a small condo in Surrey, isolated and bitter. David serves his sentence. Patricia remarried under her new husband's name. Claire works as an administrative assistant, trying to rebuild a life away from her family's shadow. The blog still exists. Every time someone searches the Henderson name, that photo appears. Every job application, every social interaction, every attempt to rebuild, Oliver's hurt face is there. Some might say I went too far, that the punishment exceeded the crime, but they didn't see my son's face that day. They didn't hear him cry himself to sleep. They didn't watch a 7-year-old learn that the people who were supposed to love him considered him throwaway. 5 years of fallout for 75 seconds of choice. I'd make that call again without hesitation. The truth is, I learned something important that day that changed how I see everything. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when it matters. It's about who protects the vulnerable instead of joining in their embarrassment. It's about choosing love over loyalty to people who don't deserve it. Oliver knows he's wanted now, not because of whose blood runs in his veins, but because of whose heart beats for him. That's what real family means. If you're reading this and you're in a situation where you have to choose between keeping peace and protecting someone you love, I hope my story gives you courage. Peace isn't worth the price if it costs you your integrity or your child's well-being. Document everything, trust your gut feelings, and when the moment comes, don't hesitate. The people you're protecting matter more than the people you're exposing. Oliver is thriving now, and every time he looks at me and smiles, every time he says, "I love you, Dad," I know I made the right choice. That's all that matters.